What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. My name is Marcus, aka M3 the producer, and today we're going to be talking about how I would learn the piano again if I had to start all the way over. And I'll be straight up with you. If I had to choose, I would learn the same exact way. So I am self-taught. I never really took traditional piano lessons. And there are advantages and disadvantages of that. And so that's what we're going to be getting into with this video. Okay. So the first thing that we need to start with is we need to start with a belief. So we need to first believe that we can learn piano. So when I first started, I started when I was maybe 6 or 7. And I didn't really set out to become like a master at the piano. I just wanted to play because I thought it was cool. And then, by the time I actually learned it, I found out that like learning piano was supposed to be hard. I didn't know it was hard. And the truth is, you've already learned a whole bunch of really hard things in your life. If you know how to walk, if you know how to talk, all of those things when you first start out seem impossible. But you have a belief that you can do it, mainly because you're surrounded by people that are doing it. And so with piano, we have to kind of make that the same thing. We have to start off with a foundational belief that we can do it. And the truth is, if you can outlast the difficult phase, you're going to win, because everything starts out a little bit difficult. It starts off with a challenge, but if you can make it past that challenge, you're gonna win. You can learn anything that you set your mind to. All right, so getting to it. So the first thing is we need to segment skills and we need to mastery stack. So segmenting skills is basically you're not gonna learn everything at once, because that's how you get overwhelmed, that's how you get confused, and that's why you quit. Okay, so we're not going to do that. We're going to learn one thing at a time, and we're going to mastery stack. So that means we're just going to master one thing first and get so good to the point where it goes into our subconscious and we don't have to think about it. We could just do it. And then once you get to that, then you learn the next thing and the next thing. And pretty much once you get to the end of it, you could play a whole piano piece while you're having a conversation, because you've mastered all of the little steps that it takes to play, and you can do it pretty much with ease. And that's the goal. That's what we want to get to. So the first thing I would start with is learning the keys. Okay, so when I say learning the keys, that doesn't mean start from C and count your way up to find a F, right? I've seen so many people do that, and you can find your keys that way, but you have to get to a point of mastery with that first. So the way to do that is to master the keys by position. I should be able to tell you, let's find 5 E's, and you can do that within 1 to 2 seconds. Okay, so that's the level we want to get to. And so here's how I do it. So I've taught so many first lessons that it's not even funny. I've been teaching for 11 years, and I've taught this part specifically more times than I can count. So, and think about it like this. I've taught 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds this, and it works for them, so it can work for you. It might be a little silly, but it'll work, okay? So you take the group of 2 black keys. So you've got 2 here, and then you've got a group of 3. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to memorize the outsides here, and then you're going to memorize the inside with the group of 3, outside, inside. Okay. So like I said, I've taught really young people to do this, so it's going to be silly. Just bear with me. Okay. So the outside of this group of 2, we've got crazy elephant. Okay, so C on this side, E on this side. And what you want to do is you want to basically find those groups really quickly. C, E, C, E, C, E, and so on. All right. Then we're going to memorize the middle. So the middle, it's trapped in between the group of two. It's the only group that's by itself. We call this the doghouse. So that's the note D. D, 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 D. And then you basically just want to practice, like start off with those three. So I could say find 4 E's, find 3 C's. You know, practice that, do that over and over again until it's super easy. Then go to the group of 3. You take this group of 3 right here. We have F and B, so we're going to call this one Facebook. So remember, Crazy Elephant, Doghouse, and now we've got Facebook. So F on this side, B on that side. And then you want to add that to everything else that you had. So think, okay, 3 Ds, 4 Fs, 5 Bs. You want to be able to do it that quickly, okay? Last group, in the middle of the group of 3, we've got green apples. So G on this side, A on this side. And you basically just, again, you just want to find those super quickly. G, 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 A, A, A. Okay? Then, once you do that, you've pretty much got all of the keys. Everything is just it just repeats. So you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So this might seem like a really, really simple thing, and you might feel like I'm taking too much time with it, but this is the first thing you want to know. You don't want to be thinking about, you don't want to see an F and like have to think, okay, now where's an F? So that's what makes it a bit overwhelming. So master this first, okay? The next thing I would do is I would start learning songs from Synthesia. So if you don't know what Synthesia is, it's the little videos that you see where the notes kind of fall from the sky, like Guitar Hero, and they line up with the actual keys that you're playing. That's how I would do it. So when I learned, I had a light up keyboard. It had these little notes, this little red light that would show you exactly like which key to play to be able to play the song. And I would just spend hours and hours doing that, making sure I was doing the right fingers and everything. And so now I would use Synthesia. So there's a few reasons for that. So number one, you can see as like what fingers the person is playing the song with, and you can make sure that you're doing the exact same thing. And number two, you can slow the video down. So, if you're playing a song and it's going just a little bit too fast for you, you could slow it down to 0.75 or half speed, and you can follow it that way. And so yeah, I would just start off with simple songs. Just play, the Jingle Bells, Mary Had a Little Lamb. Then, get to more complicated songs, get to songs that you are more likely to want to play. And it all kind of depends. Me, I always like the challenge. So you could even start with some harder songs. And make that kind of like a long-term goal that you have. But either way, that's how I would start. I would learn songs that way. And you might be thinking like, okay, but you're not learning, the scale or the theory and all of that stuff. Turns out you actually are, but you're learning it in the background. Okay? And you'll see as we get to the next steps that this is how I would do it. So by doing it this way, you're not going to get overwhelmed with, learning, learning the scales and learning fingerings and all that stuff, and that's kind of why me personally, I wouldn't go the traditional lesson route, because with that, you're learning to read sheet music as well. So sheet music and playing the piano are two different skills. So a lot of the time with traditional lessons, you're learning them both at the same time, and that's what makes it get overwhelming. So with this approach, we're kind of leaving the sheet music out of it, just because, at least for what I want to do, I want to learn how to write music on piano. So that's what I would do. I would learn visually rather than learn with like a lesson book and reading sheet music. Okay, so once you feel comfortable with, playing and you've learned a few songs, then I would start to learn some scales, okay? Right? And you could start, everyone starts with C. That's a simple scale. So what I would do is, just learn the notes in the scale: C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And then while you're learning those notes, also learn the chords of that scale. So you can even start with two note chords. And so by this I just mean pick a note. You can start with C and skip. So you have these two notes. What two notes are those? Well, that's C and E. Okay, so that's going to be the beginning of my C chord. Um, do all of the chords like that. Then add one more skip. Play all of your chords that way. And so what you want to do with this is um so focus on the notes that are in the chords and the notes that are in the scale, and you basically just you want to feel them, right? So you want to listen to them, you want to hear them, you want to feel them. Right? So you should know, like, okay, this D chord is, it feels a little bit different than when I play a C chord, right? A C chord kind of has like a happier feeling. This one kind of has like a darker feeling. Just go through, play the chords like that. And the last thing I would do is I would just make something that sounds cool to me. So if I'm playing in the key of C, right, you could play chords on the left hand and some type of melody in the right hand. So you could do like, that's something simple, but by creating something, you're going to teach yourself how to convey what you want to convey, right? And we're doing this like super basic, um easy mode, right? So um but this is the key. So by doing this, you're training your ear and you're learning the theory based off of what you're hearing, rather than, learning a bunch of terms and being confused as to what they mean, or, why you're even learning this in the first place. Okay? So memorizing a bunch of terms and memorizing things isn't actually learning. We've been taught that because of school. That's what we do. You learn a bunch of facts, you take a test, and voila, you've learned it. But what you really want to do when you're learning something is you want to create something with that. That's how you learn, because when you create something, you hit a wall, right? So with something like this, the wall, I could say, is like, this sounds super basic. I don't know why it sounds basic, but I want to make something that sounds cooler, right? So then you can learn something else, figure out how to make, your chords sound more advanced, or so. And that's the key, is you want to keep building. You want to do this in different scales. So after you do C, you could do G. And what I would do is I would just follow the circle of fifths. You can Google that, figure out what that means. But basically, every time you go up a fifth, you're going to add a new sharp. So now G, we have that F sharp. So learn your chords in the key of G. create something in the key of G. That sounds cool. Okay. And then as you keep going through different keys and at the same time you're learning songs through Synthesia, you'll build up these two pillars together and you'll start to notice like there's crossovers. You'll start to realize like, oh, this song I learned in Synthesia is actually in the key of G. And you'll start to put those two together and you'll be able to see like, oh, okay, they made it sound this way by doing this, by taking this G chord and playing it like that, right? So you're building up your own vocabulary by playing songs that you want to play, rather than boring lesson book songs. And at the same time, you're learning the notes that are in all the scales. You're training your ear to create what you want to hear. Um, and as you do that, you'll get to a certain point where it's like, okay, now I need to learn inversions, or now I need to learn voicings. And by doing this, you can get to a pretty advanced level just by doing Synthesia, practice playing in different keys and creating in those keys, and by training your ear. And that's what it's all about, really. So if you can do that, then you can learn the piano, and that's how I would do it. But one thing you have to remember is that it all starts with a belief, right? You have to believe that even though this is hard, I can do it. Other people do it. So that means that it's possible. And by having that belief, that's going to be the fuel that allows you to keep going. Because when you start with belief, then you can get some improvement. And then once you see improvement, that's going to give you more belief. And then more belief means you try different things. And by trying different things, you get improvement. And it's a cycle. So you have to start with that belief that you can do it, and then you have to commit to actually doing it, to actually going through and being curious and following what you set out to do, and playing what you hear. And that's the key. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you made it to the end, go ahead and like and subscribe, all of that stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.